Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, happy Sunday. Check in, check in, check in. We are back. Happy Sunday and happy April to you guys. We are in another month, another episode. And I know we was off last Sunday for Easter weekend. So check in, guys. Check in. We are back. We are back. We are back. We are back. So I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes to check in. I am excited to be back with you guys this Sunday. Happy Sunday and happy April to you guys. Look, these months are like flying by with us, and I'm excited, excited, excited as the months are going by. 2026 like is wasting no time with us, right? So, if it's your first time checking in with us, let us know where you're checking in from. If it's your first time checking in with the Chit Chat Podcast family, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your host, Shan, Shadonna Thomas, affectionately known as Shan. But we welcome you to the podcast family. We are here to support, motivate, inspire the everyday woman. And we do that by chatting all things women. So we welcome you to this podcast family. And we hope that this would not be the last time that you join us on a Sunday. We go live at 5 every Sunday, unless it's a holiday Sunday. And we do like to engage and hope that you can come and chat with us anytime that you see our chat light on. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Look, like, share this episode. We are talking about April showers. We've heard that whole term, right? April showers bring May flowers, right? So we've heard that, our whole entire life. What does that mean? April showers bring May flowers. So we're going to be talking about how we're blooming, how we can bloom in times where it's raining, it's storming in our lives, where we go through periods of a storm and rain and things that causes us to have a break. It causes us to have a period in our life where the sun ain't shining. It don't feel like it's flowers are blooming. It don't feel like it's sunshine. It don't feel like it's sunshine and peaches and creams, right? So what do we do during those times? And so this is an episode. If you're going through that, if you just went through that, if you already been through an experience like that, if you ever been through an experience like that, this is an episode for you. So like, share with somebody that you know that can benefit from hearing this episode, because guess what? When we have experienced something, we like to make sure what we've gone through, we can reach somebody and make sure they're able to. Hi, Mr. Sutton. Thank you for joining us. We make sure that we can make sure somebody else can get something out of it as well. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to Chit Chat Podcast, where we have the real conversations, right? These conversations we try to engage in to inspire growth, healing, and transformation. Again, I am your host, Shadonna Thomas, and I go by the affectionate name of Shan. We're talking about April showers today, bloom after the storm. That is our episode topic today. We hear that phrase all the time: April showers bring May flowers. But let's be real. Nobody talks about what it feels like when we're actually in the storm. So when life is heavy, things are going crazy and chaotic in our life, when things aren't going our way, when we're questioning ourselves, our paths, and even our purpose. So today we're going to have conversations, and I want you guys to engage, chime in as you see fit, and have honest conversation about that journey from the storm to the growth to the bloom. That's what we're going to talk about today. So we know that storms show up. If life is lifing, guess what? Storms are going to show up. Everything is not going to be hunky glory all day, every day, 365 of our lives, right? Storms going to show up in our lives differently. And sometimes and sometimes we're going to handle it differently. Everybody handle things differently um, based off of how and who we are. Sometimes it's heartbreak. Sometimes it's financial pressure. Sometimes it's feeling stuck overlooked, or uncertain about what's next. And in those moments, you know, it's uneasy, or sometimes it's easy to feel like everything is falling apart. But what if it's actually coming together? Sometimes when we feel like there's a break, or there's something like our whole life is falling apart, what if something is not actually falling apart, it's actually coming together? What if the storm isn't actually breaking you, but it's actually building you? That gives you something to think about. So I want you to think about a time in your life, or a time right now, where you felt overwhelmed, where things didn't make sense, or somehow looking back, you didn't see how it shaped you into who you are today. Some of you might be going through that currently right now, because here's the truth: growth doesn't always happen in comfort. And let's be honest, growth doesn't happen in comfort, because if it did, it would never feel good for any of us. Growth happens in the rain. The pressure you feel, it's stretching you, the discomfort, it's transforming you, the uncertainty, it's preparing you. So let's talk about it. I want you to pause right now and think about a time here where you had a storm that popped up in your life. It could be a recent time or a time in the past. What has been a recent storm in your life, and what did it pull from you that you didn't think that you had? Sometimes we feel like, oh, I didn't even know I had that kind of strength in me until I went through X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times it takes us going through certain things before we realize, wow, you know, I'm stronger than I realized I was. Or, I didn't realize, I didn't have, the audacity to, do the things that I could do until I went through this, that, or the other. And sometimes it takes that. Sometimes life and God would put us through certain things to get us to a place that He needs us to be, in order to get us out of a place of complacency, and get us out of a place of comfort, to give us discomfort, to place us in a place of purpose. And I've been there. I know that I had a recent storm. I've been very transparent about my healing journey that I've been on over a year now. And so been very transparent about it. And I wanted to be transparent about it because one of the things that I was very transparent about was, I was very transparent, open about how happy I was when I was in the relationship. So when the relationship was going well, and it was dates and trips and all that good stuff, I was good with that. And I was sharing all that good stuff. But when the heartbreak and the breakup happened, you know, it was a lot. And to me, I felt like, God, I don't want to feel like I'm being fake. People gonna be like, what happened? We see all the happy stuff. So what happened? And God was telling me, show the suffering too. If you show the times of happiness, show the times of suffering too, because you want to make sure when I bring you from that place of suffering, that people will see what you've been through and how you got through it, so they'll know that they too can get through something such as this. And so that's why I've been so transparent about it. I haven't given names or anything like that. However, I've been transparent about how I've grown through it, some of the things I experienced through it, some of the things that I had to grow and learn of myself from it, or whatever. And so some of those things I've been very transparent to kind of share and with you guys along this journey, only because during times like that, during the time of the rain, when we plant those seeds like that in the rain, that's the time of harvest. That's the time when God is saying, hey, because you're suffering, or the times that the rain is coming, and the times that you're dealing with things, or you feel like you're breaking, you're actually not breaking, you're becoming. I'm creating some things in you because you're sharing, because you're being transparent, because you're helping others when you're in heartbreak yourself, because you're serving when you really want to be home crying, or waddling in stuff in despair. You're out here doing this, you're out here helping somebody else, or you're doing other things. These are the things that when the rain is happening, when the rain is coming, you're sowing those seeds, and you're pushing and going and doing. And that's what is required for growth to happen during this time of discomfort. And so growth doesn't happen when we're comfortable. It never happens when we're comfortable. It happens during periods of discomfort, when we don't feel like it, when we don't look like it. God, how's she doing all that? Did she just have a breakup? Ain't she heartbroken? Then her man just leave her? Why? How's she doing? How's she smiling? How's she going on a trip? How's she doing this? How's she looking that good? Because you still got to push, you still got to go, you still got to go forward, you still got to do the things that God is requiring you to do, you still got to work on you, you still got to do the things that is required of you inward, to do the things outward. So all these things are still required. Those seeds that's being planted during the time of the rain is still required in order for that bloom process to happen later. And so growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the rain. It happens during the discomfort. It happens when you feel the pressure. It's happened when you're being stretched. It's happened when you don't feel like it. When you're transforming. It's happened when people are looking, when they want to know how she doing. What's going on with her, with the uncertainty. When God is preparing you, when things are being prepared for you, when you're being prepared, all these things are happening during the rain process. So I want you guys to like pause for a minute and think about an opportunity or a time where you was been, um, you know, you had a storm, and what did it teach you about yourself? I just shared what it taught me about myself. What was a time that was going through your storm, or if you're going through your storm now, what did it teach you about yourself? And you guys can just drop it in the comments or whatever. What was something that it taught you about yourself? Because a lot of times we learn so much about ourselves. We'd be like, gosh, I didn't realize, I can endure that. I didn't realize how strong I was. I didn't realize that, um, you know, I was capable of that, because we don't realize what we're capable of until we endure something that is required of us. Until we're enduring something that's required of us, we'll never know what our capabilities are. you know I had a pastor back in Georgia. You say, you can't conquer what you won't confront. So until we confront those things, we won't never know what we can conquer, right? So I can't go out there and say, well, I know I can go do that, if I'm not able to confront the things that I know that's required for me to do it. So we got to be able to say, hey, I know it's going to require some things of me that I'm not used to, I'm not adjusted to, or whatever. And it's going to require me to be have some discomfort. I'm going to have some uncertainties. I'm not going to be aware of a whole lot of things. It's going to transform me in some ways that, going to make me not be sure about some things. But I also know it's going to prepare me. It's going to prepare me for a time. It's going to prepare me for a time that after the rain, there's going to be a time that these seeds that I'm planting right now, that rain is going to produce a harvest that's going to later produce something that's going to require that seed to later produce something that's going to require a bloom. So what was something that taught you about yourself when you inquired a storm in your life? What was something? So drop that in the comment. I'm just curious to know, if you share to care to share with us, let us know what was something that you learned about yourself. Because you know, we definitely, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff I could share that I don't want to be all about me. But there's a whole lot of stuff that I learned about myself. But there was things that I already knew, but I just wasn't certain. There was things that I already knew I wasn't certain that I needed confirmation on, and God was confirming those things. And sometimes God would take you through things to allow some things to be confirmed as well. You know, just like uh the children of Israel when they had to go through the wilderness for 40 years because they were so doggone hard-headed. Sometimes, us being hard-headed and or whatever, we go through period and cycles. Y'all heard me talk about being on that hamster wheel. We go on period of cycles, we repeat in cycles all the time because we have not learned the lessons that we need to learn. And God would have us repeat those same cycles because you ain't learned what you need to learn from. Once you learn what you need to learn from it, guess what? Done. You move on. But until you learn those, you gonna still be dealing with the same old things over and over and over again until what is required of you. To whom much is given, much is required. So what is required of you until you get that, those cycles gonna keep being repeated. You're gonna be on that hamster wheel, doing the same thing, expecting something different. So yes. So what is something Jada said? Moving to the DMV area, away from my family and friends to focus on my career and health. Started therapy and learned a lot about myself and what I needed to fit the mindset of what and who I needed to be. Mindset is when I tell you, when you can change or shift your mindset, that is like a big change. Because a lot of times we got to learning things is easy for me. Unlearning things is the hard part for me, because especially when you're an adult, because we know that as we're living, we're going to be conditioning to learning things, right? We're constantly living and learning, right? But as adults, especially when you hard-headed adults, and then you got those other hard-headed adults who are like narcissistic kind of people who don't want to listen to nothing, and they do things the hard way anyways and how they want to do it. And so you got you know people that don't want to listen, and so they don't ever shift their mindset. It's like a, a, a mindset that just stays in stuck. And so they won't shift it. And so, you know, the Bible even tells us that we got to renew our mind. And if we want change in our life, it requires us to renew our minds. In order, and you're right, Jada, elevation, no matter what area in life, requires isolation. You become a new person. And elevation requires you to shift too. So in order for you to shift or whatever, you can't shift being stuck in the same mindset. How I was a year ago, how I was 2 weeks ago, can't take me where I'm trying to go next week. So it's constantly, you got to constantly be shifting. You got to constantly be thinking and renewing of the mind and shifting, because at if you're trying to grow, and there's a continuing process of growth and growing or whatever, you can't stay stuck. You can't stay stuck, because if you stay stuck, you're going to repeat cycles. And if you stay stuck, you're going to be stuck in storms where the rain process going to forever be raining on you, raining on your party or whatever. And you're never going to get to that blooming process or that process of growth. Those seeds will never get a process of being able to have that, to grow, to harvest anything. Because I mean, where is the harvest time? Because you're stuck. You're stuck. And so we got to give ourselves that opportunity to grow, and to give ourselves the opportunity to just like Jason said, no matter what area of your life, and sometimes growth does require you to isolate. Sometimes you got to leave some people, leave some areas. um and that's tough too. I mean, that's even in the Bible. I mean, God made people leave their whole entire family. So, sometimes you have to leave people, and sometimes those people are family. Sometimes there's family members that can't go where you got to go, where you move into, or where you shift into, or where you elevate into, because, some people are stuck on toxic ways, toxicity, old ways. People don't, everybody can't shift or think or elevate or their mindset, or people don't, and then people may not have the same vision you have as well. And everybody don't have the same mindset, and so you got to think, I can't take everybody with me. That's why you have to be very careful about who you connect with, who you network with, those people that you share your vision with, you share your dreams with, or whatever, because everybody is not there to see you win and to see you grow in the process of getting to that purpose, or getting to that end goal of trying to see you win, or get to that end goal and see you win at the end. Some people trying to see. I posted something on my page today that everybody is not checking, on you, to see if you win, and some people are checking to see, um, you know, if you didn't win. So you got to make sure who's in that category, and you got to make sure you discern who you can carry and who you can move, elevate and move with you as well, when you're moving and isolating, and when you're being pulled into those areas as well. So that's definitely a growth process, when you're trying to get through the rain process. So that's a good point, Jada. You definitely become a new person at the different storms. And speaking of that, when we're talking about a new person, because we're gonna move on to something else after this. But when you're talking about a new person after different storms, I'm telling you, because some people would think they can get the same you, or the same version of you, after they don't experience an old you before. No, baby. You won't get the same person after, and especially after they have contributed to the storm that you don't been through. You don't get the same version of me. And especially if I don't learn something about myself to make me better, at becoming a better version of myself. Yeah, I don't became a new person. Yeah. And especially if we are becoming a new person spiritually, the Bible tells us we become a new creation. So if you become a new creation, all those old ways are passed away anyways. So yeah, some people don't, they only know the old version of you. That's all they could talk about, is the old version of you. They don't know who the new version of you is, and what the new version of you requires, and all that. So they don't have access of the new you, or the new version of you. They only know who the old person is, or the old version of you. And some people are stuck on that too. So so another question is, are you still in your storm, or are you starting to see your growth? So some of you who have went through recent storms in your life, and you've learned what it has taught you, are you still in it? Or are you starting to see your growth? I can definitely say I've seen my growth. It's been over a year, and I've seen my growth. I'm definitely not the same person, which, I count it all joy for sure. Um, do I think that I definitely think I'm a better person? I think I'm the same person, but I think I'm a better person. I think I'm a better woman. I think that all the things that I had in me before has become better. There are some things that I had to die of. There's some things that I had to change because there was parts of me that I wasn't pleased with, and that I wasn't pleased with how I allow others to misuse and guide that. Because sometimes people take kindness as weakness or whatever, and so you have to be careful what version of yourself that people tend to kind of sell for you. No, you know um make sure people understand very well and correctly who you are and who you are to them, so that way when they're trying to sell you to others, other people don't get you mistakenly, so they don't think, oh, this is who they say you are to, from their version or whatever. I'm not going to be the same version I am to this person that to you that I am to this person. So, people have to be mindful of that. So, but are you still in it? Or are you starting to see your growth? So answer that in the comments. If you guys are been in a recent storm in your life, what did it teach you about yourself? And are you still in it? Are you starting to see your growth? Because that's important. We need to be able to see it. We need to be able to see what we're producing. Are we producing some fruit? Are we seeing some things? Are we seeing some of the stems growing? Are we seeing some leaves producing? Are we seeing the seeds forming? What's producing? We need to start seeing some stuff starting to bloom and produce. That's what growth, does when development happens during that growth process. So, put that in the comment if you have seen some growth. What are you proud about in that moment? So here's one of my favorite part of the journey, the bloom. I love that. I've always told my kids, since they was younger, bloom where you're planted, because they've been military kids their whole entire life. And so so they always had to adjust and transition, because of that. And so I've always told them, bloom where you're planted. So it don't matter where you got to, change schools, go to a different school, different environment or whatever, you know, you know, bloom where you're planted. Wherever you are, bloom where you're planted. So the blooming process was always a big thing in our household. So because blooming doesn't mean everything is perfect, blooming means you kept going, you healed, you grew, you found strength when you didn't even know you had it. That's what blooming means. Sometimes we're so focused on what went wrong that we forget to celebrate how far we've come. And I've been there. Like, gosh, like I was just thinking the other day, I was like, I can actually have and this is funny. I was just thinking the other day, I can actually have a conversation about my uh, healing situation and talk about the situation and certain parts about it. I mean, I can talk about any parts of the situation now and not be mad, not be angry, not be mad, sad, none of that stuff. Angry, none of that stuff anymore. And so when you get to that point, you know that you have healed. You know that you are in a place of growth. You know that you're in a place where you have bloomed or whatever, because and you haven't cried. Because I remember there was a time where I couldn't even talk about it without getting mad or upset or crying, because I'm like, you know, Ninja is lying, this and this and don't happen, this been said, you know, all this and this, instead, all this stuff. But I didn't, I didn't sit there and try to go back and forth and do all this kind of stuff. I was like, in my mind, I was like, God, you know the truth, and the people who know the truth. So that's all that matters. And at the end of the day, I let all that be. And so when I let all that be, all that stuff started falling off. So before long, I was talking about it where I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't hurt anymore. Call it stuff. It was hurtful more than it was. I was. I think I was more hurtful about it than I was like sad or angry about it. It was more hurtful for me. But once I got over that, like the hurt didn't hurt no more. The sad didn't wasn't sad no more. The pain wasn't there no more. Not a tear could drop anymore. Look, when that was gone, look, your girl was good. I was just like, okay. Because once you get to that point, that's when you know that the process is processing, that you're growing, that you're blooming, that the rain is purging, is purifying, it's taking you, it's doing what it needs to do during your growth process, is taking you and cleansing some things, is taking you through some things that needs to go through to get you to that place of bloom. And that's where you want to be. That's where you want to be, because that's where the growth happens. You know, when you have the rain, when you have the rain, that's what when you have the rain, that's where the growth happens. And so you want to make sure that you don't rush that process. A lot of people want to rush it. Like, if it's a relationship, they want to jump into something else. If it's, or, if it's a career, they want to, instead of processing, well, maybe I should start my own business or whatever. They just want to jump into another job. And it might be something they don't even like doing. It's just a job, just to get a paycheck. And then, but you miserable doing it, or, jumping into, another relationship or another marriage and stuff, and you unhappy, you unfulfilled, you're not, there's no foundation there. You just there, it's just it's just a situation. So all these things, we have to be mindful of that. So we're just not running into something, or making a process so quick, saying, oh, let me go on and jump it. I don't want to be single too long, or I don't want to be, doing this too long or whatever. Don't rush the process of the rain. Don't rush the process of the seed, giving it time to grow. Don't rush the process of the growth, so that the bloom can process properly. Because trust me, the bloom is where the building is happening. The bloom is where the becoming is happening. You don't want to rush that, because you want to make sure that you're becoming the best version or better version of yourself. You don't want more of the same. You don't want the same old version of you. You don't want the same old. We don't want that. We want better. We want something different. So that's what, when we're blooming, we nobody wants, when flowers are blooming, we get these beautiful new flowers that sprout out, and gives us these beautiful, flowers, and new petals and all that. So we're not getting old petals that done died, and the old petals don't die, they don't come back and sprout out, and the old petals are still there. No, those things don't been pruned and purged, and fell off. Even the dead leaves are gone. That's why you had the different seasons that happen in the process, that purges all of that from that takes away the dead leaves and all the stuff that got to fall off. So that way, when it's time for the new flower or the new plant to emerge, it emerges beautifully. It emerges like how it needs to emerge, strong, with a good foundation. That's what you want for you. You want to find that strength you didn't even know you had. You know, Sometimes we focus on what went wrong, and we don't celebrate how far we come. Like, dog, like last year, I couldn't even talked about this. I probably been out here boohoo crying, like, that ninja, he did this. I was still been talking about it and been mad and sad and crying and all this kind of stuff, sniffing and all this kind of stuff. Not today. Mm-mm. Got to celebrate how far I've come. That's why it was good for me to share into my healing process. I I wasn't hiding it. For what? I celebrated with y'all when I was on them vacations, when we was all at them on different resorts. We was on them different, all the different things that we did. I was sharing in all the happy moments. So why can't share in the suffering time when my heart was broken, when God was taking me through the heartbreaking process, when He was rebuilding me from that. That's the important part, because if God can take me from a broken state and rebuild me to the point where you see me now, that's even better, because now whoever I get next, or whoever gets me next, they're getting a better version. They're getting a better version because you already don't see me at the broken stage, and you already don't see what I've been through. So when oh my God, she don't been through that. So when she gets reunited with somebody in the next part of her relationship, or whoever, when her husband find her, it's gonna be a beautiful thing. So those are the things, so I didn't have to hide that, because I didn't hide the other stuff. So that's why I was being transparent. So everybody ain't the same, and that won't be everybody else's story. Everybody's different. That was Shan's story. So how you are blooming differently today compared to somebody else, that would be your story. Everybody blooms differently. Everybody growth is differently, and that's okay. Because we're different people, and how we process our growth, how we process our pain, how we process our healing is also okay as well. So let me ask you this. How are you blooming differently today compared to a year ago? I already told you how I was. What are you proud of, even if nobody else sees it? What is something that you're proud of, even if nobody else sees it? I think one of the things that I'm proud of, even if nobody else sees it, is I never lost who I was. I never tried to retaliate. I never, and this is what can probably make me emotional. I never tried to retaliate. I never tried to get back. I never tried to do to them what they did to me. I never tried to say, I'm gonna get them, I'm gonna get you, sucker, like they tried to do me. So because I know God gets back is way better than anything I can do. And I wasn't trying to block my blessings. So that's one of the things that I am proud of, if nobody else sees it, is the fact that I did not have to do to them like they did to me, because I'm a child of God. So I wasn't doing anything that was going to block my blessings. And God ain't skipped a beat on blessing me, blessing my children, blessing my household, all of that stuff. Even when I know there was outside influences trying to speak against stuff that was being, trying to be done against me. God ain't skipped a beat. So I didn't do to other people what they was trying to do to me. So that's one of the things that I am proud of, even if nobody else seen it. So you tell me what are you proud of, even if nobody sees it? So because everybody, there's things that we do that you know that we probably don't share. And then another thing I would probably say is affirmations. I do daily affirmations every single day. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of, because I think it has really built me up in this healing process as well. And my therapist didn't even tell me to do this. I did this on my own. But and I think that's just the 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 spirit of God in me, because I know who God says I am. And so because of that, you know, I kept speaking those things and saying, regardless if I felt rejected or whatever the case may be, I know who God says I am. And I know who God says what I can have. And so I start speaking those things. And so I do daily affirmations every day. And to the point now that I speak it for my future mate and speak it for my future husband. So before I even meet my future spouse or husband or whatever, I'm already speaking those blessings over his life. And so, because of that, I already know God's going to align that thing. And so, you know, and that's important for me because I was already doing prayer. And so, because now I'm adding those daily affirmations, that's just like putting ammunition on the stuff that God needs to, amplify what he's trying to do. And so, but those are the things that I'm very proud of that I do that nobody sees. And then I can't wait to share with my future husband, when I meet him, be like, what, baby, not only have I been praying for you, but I was speaking daily affirmations on you. So I know that you're gonna be, you know, uh faithful, trustworthy, and a great provider because I've been speaking that over you. So, all those things. Yeah. So, yeah. So, you guys drop in the comments, what are some things that that you've been proud of doing this process, this blooming process, after your storm that nobody has seen that you've been proud of for yourself? If you care to share, y'all know I'll be sharing. So if you care to share, but I don't even want it to be about me. I want y'all to share. This is engagement time. I want y'all to share. Share about some of the things. Because one of the things when I say affirmations is very empowering. So you know, let me if I can pour into you for a minute. Let's take a moment to pour into ourselves. So I do a lot of affirmations daily. And so, if I can just give you some, insight on trying to do that, because I'm telling you, it makes a difference for your mood. It makes a difference with uh, how to command your day, all this stuff. Like y'all just don't know how you can just set the atmosphere for your day and your mood, all of that good stuff. I'm telling you, you got to know how to do the things that you need to do when you're speaking. The Bible says speak those things to be as if they were. So if you want some things to happen, you need to speak those things to be. And so Jay said, I've learned boundaries, learning to say no, even with family. I'm starting my life and I'm proud of me, not trying to prove a point or please anybody anymore but myself. That's a great one. Yeah, boundaries are very vital, and especially with family, because family feel like sometimes family are our most, whew, sometimes family could be our Achilles heel because they feel too entitled to us, having access to us, too entitled to what they feel like having control over us or whatever. But having boundaries is very vital, and especially when it comes to family, because um being able to have your life and knowing how you are the CEO of your own life. And that's important. My children are the CEO of their own life. Now, if they ever come to me for guidance, I'm there on Johnny on the spot. But because they're young adults now, I got to allow them the room to maneuver through life. But, nobody wants to see their kids fall and bump their heads. Of course not. But I got to give them that space to grow and bloom and learn how they need to learn. But if they ever reach out and be mommy this, mommy is there, Johnny on the spot, quick, fast, in a hurry. You trust and believe that. But I do have to let them bump their head sometimes. And I do that. I'm learning it the hard way, but I do that. Because at the end of the day, you know, sometimes as parents, and I've been that parent, I've been the helicopter parents. I I'm gonna be honest. I've been that helicopter parent. Want to control everything. Wanted to, we can't do that. Cause at the end of the day, these kids gonna want to do what they want to do anyway, and gonna do it. I got one. He gonna do it. I can choke him till he blue. Eyes pop out his head. He gonna do it anyway, and he gonna do it just because I don't want him to do it. So you got to allow these kids the opportunity to grow, learn things, learn the hard way, bump their head, fall, bump their heads or whatever. But at the end of the day, you be there to help catch them when they fall, or catch them when they say, hey, mom, you know, I need some advice, or I need some help, or whatever. But you cannot control their life. You cannot live their life for them. And you cannot manipulate their life, do whatever. You got to let them do the things they necessarily do. They are the CEOs of their own life, and vice versa. They know they can't control mine. They know they can't. They might want to, especially when it comes. They trying to get me married off. They tired of that, but they can't. But back to empowerment and affirmations. But that's a good one, Jada. I love that. Boundaries. I am growing through what I go through. That's a good affirmation. I am growing through what I go through. Here's another one. My storm is shaping my strength. We're talking about blooming after the storm. My storm is shaping my strength. Good one. So y'all can write these, y'all can jot these down. These are freebies. I deserve to bloom in every season. Clock that one. I deserve to bloom in every season. I don't care, winter, spring, summer, fall. I deserve to bloom in every season. And you better bloom in every season. You better have that attitude. I deserve to bloom in every season. I am resilient, evolving, and powerful. And I speak that all the time for me. I am resilient, evolving, and powerful. And I am. You can trust and believe. And I walk in every room in my house, in every room that I walk in my office building, or wherever I go. I am resilient, evolving, and powerful. And anybody that knows me knows, if they see me or know me, they already know that's a person that got some confidence right there. She is resilient. She is powerful. I don't know who she is or whatever, but they always tell me that. I don't know who this person is, but this person got some confidence. She is powerful, or they be trying to figure out who I am, because that's how I walk in every room. I am resilient, I am evolving, and I am powerful. Those are some freebies for you, but start speaking some of those things in your life. You got to encourage yourself. You got to speak some things over your life to make sure that you know who you are. So when you're having times and moments during your raining season or whatever, you can dance in the rain while you're waiting for this storm to be over with. You don't have to sit there and waddle in it. You don't have to sit there and cry and do all these other things while you're in the raining season. No. Speak these affirmations during that time. So you're planting those seeds. Those affirmations are seeds that you're planting. So when the rain stops, it's blooming season. It's blooming time. It's time for those flowers to bloom. It's time for those things that you don't spoke during that rainy season. It's time for that stuff to produce. It's time for that stuff to harvest. It's go time. That's what my pastor say here. It's go time. It's go time. I need y'all to really take that on, because that's important. It really is important. So we're talking about these real life conversations for a reason, because there's people who are dealing with real life things. Life is always lifing. You know, People are going through real life growth, real transformations. You know, April showers bring May flowers. You know, everybody is not going through happy times. You know, there's people dealing with some real life situations, and we're here to talk about those things and help people to talk about those things or get through those things. So they're not feeling like they're the only one going through a storm. When life feels like it's heavy, when things aren't going our way, when we're questioning ourselves and our path and our purpose, know, we need to know what the storm looks like. So people can be like, I can identify that. We talked about that on the podcast. You know, I know what heartbreak looks like. We discussed that. I know what that financial pressure feels like. We discussed that. I know what it feels like to feel stuck or overlooked. I know our not knowing what's next. You know, the storm isn't here to break you. The storm is here to build you guys. It's here to build you. It's not here to break you. And that's one of the things that I learned not only in my healing journey, but over this past year. That storm that I went through, it wasn't here to break me. Even though I had heartbreak, it wasn't there to break me. It was there to build me. Because who I am now, baby, I wasn't a year ago. And who I am becoming, oh, I'm thankful for that storm, because I wouldn't have been this person had I not gone through that. I probably would still been stuck. I probably would have been stagnant because I hadn't gone through that to get to this point. It shaped me. It strengthened me. It's changed me. Because growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happened during a time when I was heartbroken, when everybody seen what I was going through. You know, people seen when I was getting all the cutesy little messages on my podcast. And then they seen when it wasn't happening. They seen when the rain started happening. They seen all the sunshine moments, but then they also seen when the rain happened too. But they also start seeing how, it start transforming me, how it start preparing me, how it start becoming. And because it did that, you now starting to see me blooming, because that storm didn't break me. It built me. It taught me some things. And just how it taught me some things, it can teach you some things too. So you take a moment from today's episode and reflect on some of those things. The blooming is not perfection. It's not everything falling into place either. It's you rising anyway. You keep going. You being healed. You finding strength, even when you didn't know you had it. So how are you going to bloom differently tomorrow compared to how you were today, or how you were a week ago or a year ago? What are you proud of, even if nobody sees it? What are you going to speak over yourself with affirmations to speak into your life during the raining season? So that way you can, fertile those seeds in good soil. So when it's time to bloom and harvest, it producing something after the rain, after this storm. Because you deserve to bloom in every season. Your storm is shaping you with strength, because you are resilient, you are evolving, and you are powerful. So, as we close today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed it, I want you to remember this: the storm didn't come to destroy you, it came to grow you. So, wherever you are right now, whether it's in the rain, it's in growth, are you stepping into your bloom? Trust the process. Your bloom is coming, and when it comes, it will be worth it. Thank you for checking into Chit Chat Podcast. Don't forget to follow, share, and join the conversation on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're now on LinkedIn as well. So you can check us out on LinkedIn. And if this episode spoke to you, send it to someone who needs encouragement today. Because everybody is not dealing with sunshine and roses and peaches and creams, you know. Um, but share the episode so you can encourage somebody, or just share it on your page so that way somebody can see it and hear it and let it bless them, so that it can be a blessing to somebody else. But until next time, keep growing, keep glowing, and keep blooming after the storm. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.